Yeah, so the main difference between a unit title and a company share is when you're buying a unit title, you're actually buying the property itself. But when you're buying a company share, you're buying shares in a company that owns the building. And so that looks quite different in terms of the paperwork and in terms of how banks will lend on it. So the main difference between the levies is that usually with a company share, you'll be paying the rates within the levy. And that's because with unit titles, each apartment will be split into a different unit that each has their own rates with Wellington City Council. But a company share building pays its rates all together for the entire building, and therefore it's split up between the levies.
And the rateable value for that whole building is what you can get your hands on, but you can't find rateable values or even floor areas for the individual apartments in a company share, because as James said, it is for the whole building.
Yeah, so we're actually selling a company share apartment at the moment, and we had a few buyers reach out saying that they thought that the property was sold quite recently, and they were wondering why it's being sold again. But she's actually owned that property for a very long time, but the sales data shows that any sales within the building make it look like the entire building has been sold recently, so it can get a bit confusing.
Banks do look at unit titles and company shares differently because unit titles are buying a property and a company share is buying shares. And so they don't tend to lend as much on a company share. So there are banks, probably about 3 of them, that are open to 30% deposit, but obviously that's as opposed to about a 20% deposit if you were looking at a unit title. So they are slightly more challenging to get finance on.
Yeah, so one of the main differences between the rules is often company share buildings will have a rule that it's only allowed to be owner occupied. And there are exceptions to those. The apartment we're selling at the moment allows a rental period of 1 year, and that can be extended with approval from the company directors, but only under certain circumstances like a health issue or being overseas for an extended period of time. But a lot of buildings won't allow you to rent at all.
As opposed to a unit title where there is generally no restriction on renting and sometimes even being able to Airbnb a unit title apartment. They're all different, they all have their own rules, but for most unit title properties in Wellington, you would be able to rent it out.
And another kind of interesting rule is when you purchase a company share apartment, there's usually a clause in that contract that means that the board has to meet you and approve of you before you can actually go through with the purchase.